One morning, Mavis had been sent to the yard at Farquhar to collect a train of mining supplies, while Percy shunted at the quarry. She was just about to leave when a whistle sounded out through the air. Thomas was rushing down the line with the breakdown train, and he was looking very worried.
Thomas, what's wrong?
Mavis asked as the tank engine chuffed by. Percy's had an accident at the quarry. I have to hurry, Thomas replied. He was gone before Mavis could say another word. A worried look crossed Mavis's face.
Driver, I think we better wait here.
Sounds like a good idea, replied her driver. About an hour later, the Fat Controller arrived in the yard to talk to Mavis. Mavis, Percy has been in a bad accident.
May I ask what happened, sir?
He collided with a lorry on the crossing just outside the quarry. I'm afraid he'll have to go to the works, and the crossing will need to be repaired before we can send trains to the quarry again. It will take a couple of days.
But what about me?
Mavis asked, worried. After all, the quarry was her home. Don't worry, Mavis. Your manager has said you can help out here until the quarry crossing is repaired. For the rest of that day, and the next morning, Mavis looked after Percy's trains along the branch line. She was enjoying herself. It was good to get out of the quarry and have a change of scene, to see the entire branch line. The afternoon after the accident, Mavis was shunting in the Farquhar yard. She was just arranging some trucks when the station master came running up to her. Mavis, Thomas has been delayed at Knapford. I'll need you to take his 2:36 train to Tidmouth.
Of course. Which trucks will I need?
It's a passenger service, the station master replied. He pointed to a nearby siding where 3 coaches were waiting.
Passengers? But I've never pulled them before.
Come on, Mavis, said her driver. We can't leave the passengers waiting. With that, Mavis headed off to pick up the passenger coaches. Once she'd picked up the coaches, Mavis brought them to the platform. She stopped abruptly, jerking the couplings on the coaches. We'll have to be a bit gentler, her driver observed.
I'll try,
replied Mavis as the passengers boarded. She was trying her best, but years of working with trucks had gotten her into the habit of handling her trains roughly. The guard's whistle sounded out, and Mavis pulled away with her train. Mavis was still worrying when she reached Elsbridge. Toby hadn't told her much about handling passengers, but one of the things he had mentioned was that they needed to be treated gently. Mavis looked over as a steam engine pulled in next to her.
It's Henry, isn't it?
Hello, Mavis. What brings you down here? Henry asked pleasantly. Mavis quickly explained about Percy's accident and Thomas's delay. I see, Henry replied when she had finished. May I offer you some advice, Mavis?
Yes, please. I'm not quite used to pulling passengers.
The trick to a good, gentle stop is to be slow with your brake valve, Henry said. Mavis grinned.
Thank you,
Mavis replied gratefully. She'd had a feeling there was something she was missing. Glad I could help, Henry replied as Mavis pulled out with her train. She felt a bit more confident as she headed along the line. As she arrived at Marron station, she tried doing what Henry had suggested. Her train came to a gentle halt. That's it, Mavis, said her driver encouragingly. With a confident smile on her face, Mavis pulled out of the station. She made good time along the line. Mavis soon arrived at Tidmouth Station and brought her train to a gentle halt. While her passengers were disembarking, Mavis saw another train coming in backwards.
Oliver, did you do your entire run backwards?
The little western engine smiled at her. Yes. The turntable at Alsborough is broken. We can't turn around between runs.
But how do you see where you're going?
I don't, Oliver replied. Isabel and Dulcie both have cabs in them. Driver can drive me from either one.
That's clever,
replied Mavis. Oliver chuckled. It comes in handy. They both have bells too, in order to talk to me. Half an hour later, Mavis had been turned around and was ready for her return journey. Out of habit, she bumped the coaches slightly as she backed down onto them. As Mavis moved out, she felt a strange jerk on her rear coupling.
That doesn't seem right,
Mavis said to herself, but her coaches came along smoothly, so she didn't think any more of it. As she began heading up Gordon's Hill, Mavis felt that strange jerk on her rear coupler again. She was about halfway up the hill when a loud snap sounded out. Suddenly, her train became lighter. Realizing something was wrong, Mavis immediately stopped. "Mavis, you've lost your train," called Donald, who was passing in the other direction and had seen the whole thing. Mavis quickly backed down the hill to retrieve her coaches. She found them at the bottom of the hill, where the guard had braked them to a halt. Her driver quickly climbed down to inspect the train. "We've got a problem, Mavis. The first coupling's snapped."
Snapped?
Mavis asked, worried. "The screw link's completely gone," her driver explained. Now Mavis was even more worried. She knew she had to get her passengers home. "If only we had some wire," said her driver. Suddenly, Mavis grinned.
I've had an idea, driver. I'll push the train from behind. The guard can look out of the first coach and use his whistle to let me know when to stop.
"That should work," her driver said. By the time Mavis had run around the train, the guard had climbed into the front coach and was ready to go. Once she was coupled up, Mavis quickly set off. She knew she had to make up for lost time. She reached Farquhar on time, and without any further incidents. As Mavis gently brought the train into the platform, she noticed Toby waiting on a nearby siding. The tram engine glanced over. "Did you break a coupler, Mavis?" he asked. Mavis quickly explained what had happened on Gordon's Hill. "But how did you see where you were going?" Toby asked.
I had the guard looking out for me in the front coach. I got the idea from Oliver and his order coaches.
"I see. That's good thinking, Mavis," Toby replied. Mavis smiled.
Thank you.
The next morning, Percy had returned from the works, and the quarry siding had been repaired. Mavis was taking some trucks to the quarry, and she couldn't help feeling a bit relieved. Yes, she had enjoyed the change of scene, but it would be good to get back to normal.